The great hall of the Scifi homeworld was beautiful beyond words. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling that showed the stars themselves. Light danced through everything, creating rainbows that moved like living things. Thousands of Scifi nobles stood in perfect silence, watching history unfold before their eyes. Princess Vaelith stood at the center of it all. Her skin was like living crystal, smooth and pale blue, catching the light and throwing it back in soft patterns. Her eyes were silver, ancient and proud. She was 300 years old, still young by her people's standards, and she had never felt so small. Today she would marry a human. The Scifi were an old race. They had sailed between stars when humans were still living in caves. They had built empires of art and philosophy when Earth was nothing but a blue dot in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. They settled their conflicts through words, through ritual, through the ancient art of negotiation. They did not fight wars. They did not believe in violence, and that was why they were dying. The Kethrani hegemony had come from the outer rim like a plague. They were warriors, conquerors, destroyers. They had swallowed 12 civilizations in the past century. Now they stood at the borders of Scifi space, their warships darkening the stars. The Scifi had no army, they had no weapons, they had only their words. And their words meant nothing to the Kethrani. In desperation, the Scifi Council had reached out to the youngest species in the galactic community, humans, a strange, short-lived race from a small planet called Earth. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 2 centuries ago. They were practically children. But those children had warships, those children had soldiers, and those children were willing to protect Scifi space in exchange for an alliance. The price of that alliance stood before Vaelith now. Marcus Cole was not what she had expected. The humans she had seen in diplomatic recordings were loud, emotional creatures. They laughed too easily and spoke too quickly. They burned through their short lives with a fire that seemed almost desperate. But Marcus was quiet. He stood at the far end of the hall, dressed in the black and gold formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. He was tall for a human, with dark hair touched by gray at the temples and eyes the color of a winter storm. His face was calm, patient, revealing nothing. He was not handsome by Scifi standards. His skin was soft and easily damaged. He had no natural armor, no crystalline beauty. He would live perhaps another 50 years if he was lucky. A single breath in the long life of a Scifi. Vaelith's mother had wept when the marriage was announced. "You deserve better," Queen Ethis had said, holding her daughter close. "You deserve a prince of our own kind, a partner who will walk beside you through the centuries." "What I deserve does not matter," Vaelith had replied. "Our people need this alliance. If I must bind myself to a mayfly to save our civilization, then that is what I will do." She had spoken those words with conviction. She had believed them. Now, standing in the great hall with 10,000 eyes upon her, Vaelith felt that conviction crumbling. This was real. This was happening. She was about to pledge her life to a stranger from a species she barely understood. The ceremony began. High Priest Sorrenthi spoke the ancient words of binding. His voice echoed through the crystal hall, each syllable carrying the weight of 10,000 years of tradition. Vaelith walked forward, her gown trailing behind her like liquid starlight. Marcus walked forward to meet her. They stopped an arm's length apart. Vaelith could see him clearly now. Up close, she noticed things she had missed before. Small scars on his hands, a thin line across his jaw that spoke of old injury. The way he held himself, balanced and ready, like a coiled spring. This was not a soft man. This was not a simple diplomat. But what was he? The ceremony required them to speak vows. Vaelith went first, her voice steady despite her racing heart. She spoke of alliance and duty, of peace between their peoples, of the bridge they would build together. The words were formal, empty of emotion. Then it was Marcus's turn. He was supposed to speak the human vows of marriage. Valeth had studied them. They were flowery things, full of promises about love and devotion. She expected him to recite them like the political formality they were. Instead, he surprised her. "Princess Valeth," he said, and his voice was deep and quiet. "I know you did not choose this. I know you are here because your people need you to be here. I will not pretend that this is something it is not." A murmur ran through the watching crowd. This was not protocol. Marcus continued, his gray eyes meeting her silver ones. "But I want you to know something. I do not see this as a transaction. I do not see you as a price to be paid. You are a person with your own hopes and dreams and fears. And I promise you this. I will respect you. I will protect you. I will never treat you as anything less than what you are." He paused, and something flickered in his eyes. Something almost like warmth. "If love never grows between us, I will accept that. But I will give you honesty. I will give you kindness. And I will give you my word that as long as I draw breath, no harm will come to you or your people." The hall was utterly silent. Valeth stared at him, her prepared response forgotten. No one had told her he would say such things. No one had prepared her for the sincerity in his voice. "I accept your vows," she finally managed. The ceremony concluded. They were married. That night. As Valeth lay alone in her chambers aboard the diplomatic station that would be their home, she thought about the humans sleeping in the quarters next to hers. He had asked for nothing. He had demanded nothing. He had simply bowed, wished her good night, and left her to her privacy. What manner of creature had she married? She did not know yet, but something whispered in her heart that there was more to Marcus Cole than anyone suspected. The scars on his hands, the readiness in his stance, the shadows that moved behind his calm gray eyes. She had married a mystery, and slowly, despite herself, she wanted to solve it. 3 months passed on the diplomatic station. Valeth had expected misery. She had prepared herself for awkward silences and cold formality. She had imagined long days of avoiding her human husband, counting the hours until duty allowed her to return to her homeworld. Instead, she found something unexpected. Marcus Cole was pleasant. He woke early each morning and prepared a simple breakfast. He learned to brew the Scifi herbal tea that Valeth loved, even though the smell made him wrinkle his nose. He asked about her culture, her history, her childhood memories. He listened when she spoke, truly listened, with a focus that made her feel seen. He never pushed. He never demanded. He gave her space when she needed it and company when she seemed lonely. It confused her deeply. The diplomatic station orbited a neutral moon, far from both Earth and the Scifi homeworld. It was a place of meetings and negotiations, where representatives from dozens of species came to discuss trade and treaties. Marcus handled these duties with surprising skill. Valeth watched him work. He could calm an angry Torvian merchant with a few quiet words. He could find common ground between species that had been feuding for centuries. He spoke 7 languages fluently and could read body language like others read books. "You are good at this," Valeth told him one evening. "Better than I expected." Marcus smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. "I have learned that words can solve most problems. Violence only creates new ones." There was something in his voice, something heavy, something old. Valeth began to notice other things. Marcus never slept well. She could hear him sometimes, late at night, pacing in his quarters. Once she heard him cry out in his sleep, a raw sound of pain that made her heart clench. When she asked about it in the morning, he simply said he had bad dreams. He exercised every day without fail, not the casual exercise of a diplomat trying to stay healthy. This was intense, focused, almost desperate. He ran until his legs shook. He performed combat forms that looked like deadly dances. And then there were the scars. Valeth first saw them by accident. She had entered the common area of their quarters without announcing herself, and Marcus was changing his shirt. His back was to her. She froze. His body was a map of violence. Long white lines crossed his shoulders and spine. Circular marks dotted his ribs. A terrible burn scar covered most of his left side, the skin twisted and uneven. Marcus turned and saw her staring. For a moment, his face was completely blank. Then he pulled on his shirt and the mask returned. "Old injuries," he said simply, "from before my diplomatic career." "Before?" Valeth stepped closer. "What were you before, Marcus?" He was silent for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "Someone else. Someone I am trying very hard not to be anymore." He walked away, and Valeth let him go. But she could not forget what she had seen. Those were not the scars of accidents. Those were the scars of war, of battles, of violence that she could not imagine. She began to investigate. The Sarathi intelligence network was vast and ancient. Valeth still had access to it through her royal credentials. She requested everything they had on Marcus Cole. The file that arrived was mostly black. Page after page of redacted information. Classified operations, sealed records. What little remained visible painted a fragmented picture. Marcus had been a soldier, not just any soldier. He had been part of something called the Obsidian Initiative. Valeth searched for more information about this program and found almost nothing. It was humanity's darkest secret, a project so classified that even allied species knew nothing about it. But one detail slipped through, a planet called Helios 4. Valeth searched for this name and found a single news article from 30 years ago. It was a brief report, almost hidden among larger stories. A Kethrani invasion force had attacked a human colony on Helios 4. 2.3 million Kethrani soldiers had landed, expecting easy victory. They had been stopped. The casualty report was impossible. Over 2 million Kethrani dead. Human military losses, 17 soldiers. 17 soldiers had held an entire planet against an army. Valeth read the number again and again. It made no sense. 17 soldiers could not defeat 2 million. It was absurd. It was impossible. But the report was real. The Kethrani had retreated. The colony had been saved, and buried in the footnotes, she found a name. Sergeant Marcus Cole, one of the 17. Valeth sat in her quarters for a long time, staring at the screen. The gentle diplomat who made her tea each morning. The patient negotiator who solved problems with words. The quiet man who gave her space and asked for nothing. He had helped kill 2 million enemies. She did not know what to feel. Fear, disgust, or something stranger, something that felt almost like awe. That night, she waited for him in the common area. Marcus entered and saw her sitting there. He noticed the expression on her face. Slowly, understanding dawned in his gray eyes. "You found out," he said softly. It was not a question. "Helios 4. Valeth's voice was barely a whisper. "You were there. You were one of the 17. Marcus closed his eyes. When he opened them again, she saw something she had never seen before. Pain. Deep, old, endless pain. "Yes. How?" she asked. "How did 17 soldiers stop an army?" Marcus sat down across from her. He suddenly looked older than his years, tired, worn, like a man carrying a weight too heavy for any person to bear. "Because we had to," he said. "Because there were families behind us, children, people who could not fight, people who would die if we failed." He looked at his hands, those scarred and deadly hands. "So we did not fail. We did whatever was necessary. And we have lived with what we did ever since. What happened to the others? The other 16? Marcus was silent for a long moment. 7 took their own lives within 5 years. 4 drink themselves to sleep every night. 3 disappeared and do not want to be found. 2 are in hospitals for their minds. And you? He met her eyes. I chose to build instead of destroy. I became a diplomat. I tried to save lives with words instead of taking them with weapons. A sad smile crossed his face. I thought if I saved enough people, maybe I could balance the scales. Maybe I could become someone worth being. Valeth reached across the table. Slowly, carefully, she took his hand. You are not what I expected, Marcus Cole. Is that good or bad? She considered the question. This man was a mystery wrapped in scars and silence. He had done terrible things, but he was trying so hard to be something better. I do not know yet, she admitted, but I want to find out. For the first time since she had met him, Marcus smiled with his whole face. It transformed him. For just a moment, she saw the man he might have been if war had never touched him. Then the moment passed, and the shadows returned. But something had changed between them. A wall had fallen, and Valeth realized that she was no longer just enduring this marriage. She was beginning to care about the human she had married. The diplomatic reception was held in the grand atrium of the station. Crystal chandeliers floated in zero gravity above the gathered delegates. Soft music played from hidden speakers. Servants moved through the crowd carrying drinks and delicate foods from a dozen different worlds. It was supposed to be a celebration of peace. Valeth stood beside Marcus, wearing a gown of woven starlight that her mother had sent from home. She played her role perfectly, smiling at dignitaries, making small talk with ambassadors, being the symbol of alliance that everyone expected her to be. But her eyes kept moving to the Kethrani delegation. There were 6 of them, all warriors, despite their diplomatic titles. Their gray skin was thick like armor. Their yellow eyes missed nothing. They moved through the crowd like predators at a watering hole, watching the other species with barely hidden contempt. Their leader was the worst. War Commander Drorath was massive, even by Kethrani standards. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his body covered in ritual scars that told the story of 100 battles. His left eye was missing, replaced by a mechanical implant that glowed red in the soft light. And he was staring at Marcus. Valeth felt her husband tense beside her. It was subtle, almost invisible, but she had learned to read him over these months. She knew when something was wrong. Marcus, she whispered. That Kethrani. He is watching you. I know, Marcus replied quietly. His voice was calm, but his eyes had changed. The warmth was gone. Something cold had taken its place. Do you know him? Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then he said, We have met before. Before Valeth could ask more, Drorath began moving toward them. The crowd parted before him like water before a ship. No one wanted to stand in his path. No one wanted to draw his attention. He stopped directly in front of Marcus. For a moment, neither spoke. The 2 males simply stared at each other. The air between them seemed to crackle with invisible lightning. Then Drorath smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Marcus Cole, he said, his voice like stones grinding together. The Butcher of Helios 4. I was told you died on that rock. The words fell into the reception like bombs. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Everyone was suddenly watching. Marcus did not flinch. His expression remained perfectly calm. I got better, he said simply. Drorath's smile faded. His mechanical eye whirred as it focused on Marcus's face. I lost 3 brothers on Helios 4, the Kethrani said. 3 of my bloodkin. They were warriors born, trained from childhood for battle. And you and your 16 companions, you slaughtered them like animals. We defended a colony, Marcus replied. His voice was quiet but steady. A colony of civilians, farmers, teachers, children. Your brothers came to exterminate them. They came to claim what was rightfully Kethrani territory. They came to commit genocide. Marcus's eyes hardened. And we stopped them. The tension in the room was suffocating. Valeth could see hands moving toward hidden weapons. Security personnel were speaking urgently into their communicators. This was moments away from becoming a disaster. But she could not look away from her husband. This was a Marcus she had never seen before. The gentle diplomat was gone. The patient teacher had vanished. What stood beside her now was something ancient and terrible. A warrior who had faced death so many times that it no longer frightened him. This was the butcher of Helios 4. 17 humans, Drorath growled. 17 soft, weak, short-lived humans, and you killed 2 million Kethrani soldiers. How? How is that possible? You want to know our secret? Marcus asked. He took a step forward, and incredibly, Drorath took a step back. We were not fighting for territory. We were not fighting for glory or honor or conquest. We were fighting for the people behind us, for the mothers and fathers, for the children who would never see their next birthday if we failed. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. When a human fights for something they love, there is no force in the galaxy that can stop them. Your brothers learned that lesson. I am sorry you did not learn it from their deaths. Drorath's hands curled into fists. For a moment, Valeth was certain he would attack. She could see the rage burning in his remaining eye. She could see his muscles tensing for violence. But he did not strike. Because there was something in Marcus's gaze that even a Kethrani war commander feared. Something that promised consequences beyond imagination. This is not over, Drorath said finally. My people do not forget. My people do not forgive. Neither do mine, Marcus replied. The Kethrani turned and walked away. His delegation followed. The reception slowly returned to normal, conversations resuming, music playing again. But everyone knew that something fundamental had changed. Valeth took Marcus's arm and guided him to a quiet corner of the atrium. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. Tell me everything, she said. No more secrets, no more mysteries. I need to know who I married. Marcus was silent for a long time. He stared out the window at the stars, and Valeth could see the weight of memories pressing down on him. Helios 4 was a farming colony, he finally said. 40,000 civilians, families who wanted nothing more than to grow crops and raise children in peace. The Kethrani decided they wanted the planet. They sent a fleet, an army, 2 million soldiers to take a world defended by nothing. But you were there. We were there, Marcus agreed. 17 members of the Obsidian Initiative, humanity's last resort. We were designed for impossible situations, enhanced, trained, shaped into weapons. He turned to look at her, and his gray eyes were filled with old pain. We held that planet for 93 days. 93 days of constant fighting. We used every trick, every trap, every desperate strategy we could imagine. And when the relief fleet finally arrived, he stopped, swallowed hard. When they arrived, only 3 of us were still standing, but the colony survived. Every single civilian made it off that planet alive. Valeth reached out and took his hand. It was trembling slightly. You saved them, she said softly. I killed 2 million sentient beings, he replied. I became something terrible so that innocent people could live, and I have spent every day since trying to be something better. He looked at her, and in his eyes she saw the truth. He was not proud of what he had done. He carried those deaths like chains around his soul. He had become a diplomat not to hide from his past, but to atone for it. The Kethrani will come for me, he said. Drorath will not rest until he has his revenge. I am sorry, Valeth. I am sorry that my past may have put you in danger. Valeth squeezed his hand. "You protected 40,000 innocent lives," she said. "You sacrificed your own peace for their survival. That is not something to apologize for." She stepped closer to him. "And if the Kethrani come, they will find that you are not alone. You are my husband now. Whatever storms approach, we will face them together." Marcus stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. The coldness melted. The warrior retreated, and for just a moment, she saw something vulnerable underneath. "Together," he repeated softly. That night, they sat in their quarters and talked until the stars wheeled past the windows. Marcus told her stories of Earth, of his childhood, of the path that had led him to become what he was. Valeth told him of Sirathi history, of her dreams of peace, of her fears for her people. For the first time, they were not princess and diplomat. They were partners. They did not know that 6 hours later, alarms would shatter the station's peace. They did not know that a Kethrani splinter fleet was already moving through hyperspace toward them. They did not know that Drorath had called in every favor, every debt, every blood oath to raise a force of 20 warships. They did not know that their quiet moment of connection would be their last peaceful night for a very long time. War was coming, and Marcus Cole would have to become the butcher once again. The alarms screamed through the station like wounded animals. Valeth jerked awake in her quarters, her heart pounding. Red emergency lights flashed across the walls. The calm voice of the station's computer repeated the same words over and over. "Alert! Hostile fleet detected. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill." She was on her feet and running before she fully understood what was happening. The corridors were chaos. Diplomats in sleeping clothes stumbled past her. Security officers sprinted toward their posts. Children cried in their parents' arms. Valeth found Marcus in the command center. He was already dressed in dark tactical clothing she had never seen before. His face was calm, focused, utterly without fear. He stood before the main display screen, studying the tactical data with cold precision. 20 red dots surrounded the station, 20 Kethrani warships. "They jumped in 12 minutes ago," Station Commander Reyes was saying. Her voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "They have blocked all exit vectors. Our defense fleet is only 3 frigates. We cannot fight them. We cannot run." "What do they want?" someone asked. The answer came from the communication system. Drorath's scarred face appeared on every screen in the command center. His mechanical eye glowed like burning coal. "People of this station," he growled. "I am War Commander Drorath of the Kethrani 3rd Fleet. You are harboring a war criminal. The human called Marcus Cole murdered 2 million of my people. He must face justice." Marcus said nothing. His expression did not change. "You have 3 hours," Drorath continued. "Surrender the butcher to us, and you will be allowed to leave in peace. Refuse, and we will reduce your station to dust. Every man, woman, and child aboard will die. The choice is yours." The screen went dark. Silence filled the command center. Every eye turned to Marcus. Commander Reyes spoke first. Perhaps we should consider—" "No," Valeth said sharply. Everyone looked at her in surprise. "We will not surrender my husband to murderers. We will not buy our lives with his blood." "With respect, Princess," an elderly Sirathi counselor said, "one life against thousands is still one life," Valeth interrupted. "And the Kethrani are liars. Do you truly believe they will let us go? They want this station. They want control of this sector. Marcus is just an excuse." She looked at her husband. "Tell them." Marcus nodded slowly. "The princess is correct. Drorath wants revenge, but his superiors want territory. If you surrender me, they will find another reason to attack. A border violation, a diplomatic insult, anything. You will die whether I am here or not." "Then what do we do?" Commander Reyes asked desperately. Marcus smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. We make them regret coming here. What happened next would become legend. Marcus took command of the station's defenses with calm authority that no one thought to question. He gathered every security officer, every Marine, every person with combat training. There were 55 of them total, 55 against an army, but Marcus had held a planet with less. He transformed the civilian station into a fortress. Every corridor became a choke point. Every maintenance tunnel became an ambush position. Every airlock became a trap. The Kethrani are warriors, he told his assembled fighters. They are strong, well-trained, and fearless. But they have weaknesses. They are proud. They expect easy victory. They will not understand what they are walking into until it is too late. He assigned positions. He distributed weapons. He explained tactics that seemed insane until he showed how they would work. Vaelith watched him with new eyes. This was not the gentle man who had learned to cook her favorite foods. This was not the patient diplomat who had memorized Sirathi poetry. This was something older, something forged in the fires of 100 impossible battles. This was what humanity had created to protect itself. When the Kethrani boarding pods hit the station's hull, Marcus was waiting. The first wave came through Airlock 7, 30 Kethrani warriors in full battle armor, expecting terrified civilians. They found instead a killing ground. Marcus had positioned his people in the shadows. Crossfire lanes had been calculated to mathematical precision. The Kethrani never saw what hit them. Vaelith watched from the security monitors as her husband led from the front. He moved like water, like wind, like something that could not be touched. His rifle spoke in short, controlled bursts. Every shot found its mark. The Kethrani fell, but more came. Always more. The second wave breached through the cargo bay. The third came through the docking ports. The fourth cut through the hull itself. The station filled with the sounds of battle, alarms, weapons fire, screams. Marcus was everywhere. Vaelith tracked him through the security system, her heart in her throat. He appeared at one battle, turned the tide, then vanished into the maintenance tunnels to appear at another. He was not fighting like a soldier. He was fighting like a force of nature, and his people followed him. The human Marines fought with a ferocity that shocked the Kethrani. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. When they were wounded, they kept fighting. When their weapons ran empty, they fought with knives. When their knives broke, they fought with bare hands. This was what humanity looked like when pushed to the edge. Hour 1 passed. 200 Kethrani bodies lay in the station's corridors. Hour 2 passed. The boarding parties had been pushed back to their entry points. Hour 3 approached, and Drorath, watching from his flagship, finally understood the truth. He had not trapped Marcus Cole on this station. Marcus Cole had trapped him. The Kethrani commander screamed for reinforcements. He ordered every soldier from every ship to board the station. He would bury the humans under sheer numbers. But he had forgotten something important. He had forgotten that Marcus Cole never fought alone. In the command center, Vaelith saw her husband pause at a communication terminal. His face was covered in sweat and blood. His hands were steady. "This is Cole," he said into the communicator. "Authorization Obsidian 7. Wake them up." "What does that mean?" Vaelith asked. Marcus looked at her, and despite everything, he smiled. "It means the cavalry is coming." Outside the station, in the darkness between stars, 14 shadows began to move. Ships that had been running silent for months. Ships that had followed Marcus Cole from Earth without anyone knowing. Ships that carried the deadliest weapons humanity had ever created. The Obsidian fleet had arrived, and the Kethrani were about to learn why the galaxy feared humanity. On his bridge, Drorath saw the new contacts appear on his sensors. 14 human vessels, emerging from the asteroid field like ghosts. They were smaller than his warships. They should have been no threat, but something about them made his blood run cold. "What are those?" his sensor officer whispered. Before anyone could answer, the Obsidian fleet opened fire, and the sky itself seemed to burn. The Obsidian fleet struck like the wrath of an angry god. Valeth watched from the command center as 14 human ships tore through the Kethrani formation. They were smaller than the enemy warships. They should have been outmatched, but they moved with a speed and precision that defied belief. The first Kethrani battleship exploded in a ball of white fire, then the second, then the third. The enemy fleet tried to respond. They turned their massive guns toward the new threat. They fired volleys that should have destroyed the smaller vessels 10 times over, but the Obsidian ships were not there anymore. They danced between the enemy fire like shadows. They appeared where they should not be. They struck from angles that seemed impossible. Every shot they fired found its target. Every maneuver they made was perfect. This was not a battle. This was an execution. On his flagship, Drorath screamed orders at his captains. Form defensive positions, concentrate fire, protect each other. But his words meant nothing. The Obsidian fleet had studied Kethrani tactics for years. They knew every formation. They knew every weakness. And they exploited them without mercy. Valeth felt Marcus appear beside her. His face was tired, covered in dirt and dried blood. His tactical uniform was torn in several places, but his eyes were alive with fierce satisfaction. "It is over," he said quietly. She looked at the tactical display. Half the Kethrani fleet was already destroyed. The remaining ships were scattering, trying desperately to escape. But the Obsidian fleet pursued them with cold efficiency. "Who are they?" Valeth asked. "Those ships. Those people." "They are my family," Marcus replied. "The other survivors of the Obsidian Initiative. We made a promise to each other long ago. No matter where we went, no matter what lives we built, we would always come when one of us called." He paused, watching another Kethrani ship disappear in nuclear fire. "I called." On the main screen, Drorath's flagship was the last remaining vessel. The Obsidian fleet surrounded it like wolves around wounded prey. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. A communication request came through from the Kethrani ship. Marcus accepted it. Drorath's face appeared on screen. He looked nothing like the proud warrior who had threatened them hours ago. His gray skin was pale with fear. His mechanical eye flickered erratically. Behind him, his bridge was filled with smoke and sparking equipment. "Cole," he growled, "call off your demons. We surrender." Marcus was silent for a long moment. His gray eyes studied the Kethrani commander with cold calculation. "You came here to murder thousands of innocent people," he said finally. "You came for revenge against me and did not care who else would die. Give me one reason why I should accept your surrender." Drorath's jaw tightened. "Because you are supposed to be better than us. You are supposed to be the civilized ones, the merciful ones." "Mercy," Marcus repeated softly. "You speak of mercy. Did you show mercy to the colonies you have burned? Did you show mercy to the civilians you have slaughtered?" He leaned forward. "I will tell you what mercy means to humans, Drorath. Mercy is not weakness. Mercy is a choice that the strong make, and today, I choose to let you live." Relief flooded the Kethrani's face. "But," Marcus continued, and his voice became iron, "you will deliver a message to your hegemony. You will tell them what happened here. You will tell them that humanity protects its own. You will tell them that if they ever threaten Sirathi's space again, if they ever come near the people under our protection, we will not show mercy a second time." He stood straight, and in that moment he seemed 10 feet tall. "We held Helios 4 with 17 soldiers. Today, 14 ships destroyed your fleet in 11 minutes. Imagine what we could do if we truly went to war. Imagine what would happen if you made us your enemy." His eyes burned with cold fire. "Go home, Drorath. Go home and pray that we never meet again." The communication cut off. The Kathrani flagship limped away into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of 19 destroyed vessels. The Obsidian fleet let it go. The battle was over. In the hours that followed, the station slowly returned to life. Medical teams treated the wounded. Engineers repaired the damage. Families emerged from shelters, crying with relief. Valeth stayed by Marcus's side as he coordinated the recovery efforts. She watched him comfort frightened children. She watched him thank every soldier who had fought beside him. She watched him mourn the 7 defenders who had given their lives. This was her husband, warrior and diplomat, destroyer and healer, a man who could end fleets and then weep for the fallen. When night finally came to the station, they sat together in their quarters. The stars wheeled past the window, peaceful and eternal. The silence between them was comfortable now, filled with understanding instead of mystery. "What happens now?" Valeth asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment. "The galaxy will hear about this. They will know what happened here. Some will fear humanity more than ever. Others will seek our protection. And us? What happens to us?" He turned to look at her. His gray eyes were soft now, the warrior gone, the gentleman returned. "I do not know," he admitted. "I spent years trying to escape what I was, trying to become something peaceful. Today I became the butcher again. I do not know if I can ever truly put that behind me." Valeth reached out and took his hand. "You are not the butcher," she said firmly. "You are Marcus Cole. You are my husband. You are a man who has done terrible things so that others might live. That does not make you a monster. That makes you a protector." She moved closer to him. "My people live in peace because your people fight. My world survives because your world sacrifices. I understand that now. And I am proud to stand beside you." Marcus stared at her. Something in his expression shifted. The walls he had built around his heart cracked and crumbled. "Valeth," he whispered. "I married you to save my people," she said. "But somewhere along the way, I began to see the truth. You are good, Marcus Cole. Despite everything you have done, despite everything you have suffered, your heart is good." She touched his face gently. "I am grateful that you are my husband, not because of the alliance, not because of politics, because of who you are." For a long moment, Marcus simply looked at her. Then, slowly, he smiled. It was not the cold smile of the warrior. It was something warm and real and vulnerable. "I think," he said softly, "I am falling in love with you." Valeth smiled back. "Good, because I believe I am falling in love with you too." Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance. In the corridors of the station, people celebrated their survival. Across the galaxy, news spread of what had happened, of the human who had turned a civilian station into a fortress, of the fleet that had emerged from nowhere to destroy an armada. The Scifi would tell stories about this day for 1,000 years. But in their quiet quarters, Marcus and Valeth cared nothing for legends. They sat together, hand in hand, 2 souls from different worlds who had found something unexpected. They had found each other, and that was enough. Epilogue. What Humanity Means. 1 year later, Princess Valeth stood before the Galactic Council. Representatives from 100 species filled the great chamber. They had come to hear her speak about the Scifi-Human Alliance. They had come to understand what humanity truly was, she told them. She told them about a man who had held a planet against millions. She told them about a soldier who had become a diplomat because he wanted to build instead of destroy. She told them about the night he had transformed a peaceful station into an unbreakable fortress. And then she told them the most important thing of all. "Humanity is not a species to be feared," she said. They are a species to be understood. They are creatures of contradiction. They can be gentle and terrible. They can be poets and warriors. They can create beauty and unleash destruction. She paused, looking out at the assembled representatives. But above all, they protect what they love. They fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. And if you earn their friendship, they will stand beside you against any darkness. She thought of Marcus, waiting for her back home, her husband, her partner, her love. I married a human to secure peace, she concluded. I found something far greater. I found hope. The chamber erupted in applause, and somewhere across the stars, Marcus Cole smiled. The end.